send my executive director of sales on a 6 a.m. flight to Chicago and pay a $100 Uber downtown and dinner and lunch and dinner and a flight home and all that when he can accomplish the same thing on a Zoom meeting? You're going to see innovations like that in the business world. That's my whole point. So I do think there's going to be some type of intervention. Intervention.
Love it.
Love it. Ingenuity, innovation,
invention,
insight.
Yeah.
It's the merging of all that.
Inspiration.
That's what we're trying to bring to the table here on the
inadequacy,
incorrectness on the Spielman and Hooley We Tackle Life podcast. Back in the same location for the first time in, I don't know what, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. Yeah. We'll be back on YouTube this afternoon and soon Facebook Live as soon as I can find the new device my daughter purchased last night. We made a run to the Amazon locker in the neighborhood last night at about 10:30 because she got notification that her tablet had arrived. Nice. And I knew she'd be up
you
all
have no
night.
choice.
There was no way she was going to sleep. She didn't ask. She just, said it's in and I can't wait to get it. And I was like,
which one?
Lexi.
Oh, good for her.
I said, well, let's go now.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, that's so cool.
I was like, yeah, let's go. And she talked the whole way there.
Yeah.
It was not about the tablet, but about something at school. And it was just so delightful as a father to just sit there and listen and hear the excitement.
Was she complaining about the administrators at school?
She was not. She was not complaining about the administrators. So I don't know. Obviously, I'm not my daughter.
Yes.
She's not complaining about something. So that was fun. But we'll get up and rolling on Facebook Live again here soon. But we have the NFL draft to talk about today. We have an exciting announcement to talk about today. And we have the privilege of drawing 4 names that you've all nominated for COVID-19 relief.
And just so people know that we are taking responsibility and we are broadcasting today with awareness, with responsibility, but without fear. Amen. And so it's good to be back. And
great to
see
have
you.
Back.
Yeah, and the draft was, I thought, really, really good. I worked the whole day yesterday from 3:30 till 12:30. I was doing stuff with the Lions and
Lions.com.
Yeah,
was that primarily
various
what it was?
platforms.
Okay.
The flagship station with their radio. Local Fox network, Fox Sports Detroit. So it was a little bit of everything. Then I got on a Twitter rant yesterday. I was on, you don't follow me, but it's Chris _Spielman.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I think I do follow
And I was tweeting during the whole draft, and it's just amazing how creative the tweets get the later you get into the round.
The deeper you get into the Pappy Van Winkle.
How about that? Did you see that?
I did see that.
I had actually a Rip Van Winkle and a Pappy Van Winkle.
Did Bo Bishop weigh in on that? Because he's Mr.
No, I don't know.
He's Mr. Pappy Van Winkle.
I don't know why Bo has not weighed in. Maybe he did. But a friend of mine quit drinking, and he said, "Do you want these?" And I said, "Sure." And so I didn't know what they were worth until I actually looked them up online. They're worth a lot.
They're worth a lot. So I don't know anything about it, but I know Bo has gushed about Pappy Van Winkle and his access to Pappy Van Winkle.
Wow, Bo's big leaguer, though.
Bo is definitely.
He's a big leaguer.
He is a big leaguer. There's a big leaguer of big leaguers. He's like Mike Trout. The rest of us are just hanging on to the roster.
Very proud of Ohio State last night. 3 Buckeyes taking in the first 3 picks. Enjoyed that.
Starting already.
No. He's in Ohio. He was trained.
Joe Burrow.
He was identified by Ohio State, trained at Ohio State, and he graduated from Ohio State.
Yes, he did.
You cannot argue the facts, sir.
That's right. And he's Mr. Football in the state of Ohio.
And Mr. Football in the state of Ohio. His dad's an Ohio football coach.
Yes.
What do these people want?
Well, ESPN certainly bought into your logic on that. It was. I was watching it and I thought, after about 5 minutes or so, I was like, boy, it's like Joe Burrow never even played at LSU. They're just referring to him as an Ohio State Buckeye. And I thought, man, that's got to be driving the LSU fans crazy.
Why?
Why? It was just a tiny rivalry between the SEC and the Big Ten.
It was good, though. And as predicted, all the offensive tackles that went, defensive backs, wide receivers, flying off the board. I like what the Browns did. So
you like what the Browns did. Jedrick Wills, a right tackle from Alabama. Now, this is not at all to say that he has the same footwork as a left tackle. His role at Alabama will be the same as his role in Cleveland. His role is to protect the blind side of the franchise quarterback. The difference is, of course, Tua's left-handed, so Jedrick Wills was on the blind side of Tua. He will not be, well, he will be on the blind side of Baker Mayfield, but not as a right tackle.
So Cleveland is not going to draft a guy that's not capable of making that switch, or they don't see that potential. I'm sure they have some tape. I think he did play some left tackle at Alabama, and I'm sure they worked him out at the combine, or maybe before the quarantine hit, they were down there and seeing that this is an adjustment that could be made. Nick Saban's a pretty upfront guy. I'm sure they interviewed him, asked him about Jedrick. So it was the right pick, though. I mean, I know we were talking about, do you move up to get Trent Williams and draft a different. I just think you get a young offensive tackle, plus the price tag of that young guy is going to be a lot cheaper than it is to get Trent Williams.
They had the option. The only tackle off the board at that time was Andrew Thomas, Georgia.
Yes.
Went to the Giants at 4. He was the guy that people thought the Browns wanted, and the guy that people thought might be there at 10. He was not expected to be the first tackle taken, but this is individual tastes. You see what you like, what you see. You see what you like. The Giants liked Andrew Thomas to protect Daniel Jones' blindside, so they took Andrew Thomas. Then the Browns had their choice of Mekhi Becton from Louisville, Christian Wirfs from Iowa, who was also a right tackle, and the guy they took, Jedrick Wills. Now, Joe Thomas loves the pick, according to your friend and mine, Steve Dorshuk of the Canton Repository. He tweets, "I never heard Joe Thomas so happy for his old team. He guarantees Jedrick Wills will make All-Pro." He went on and on as to why Wills was the best offensive tackle in the draft.
I mean, we all have our taste, and we'll see. And I hope he's right. And Joe certainly knows that position as well as anybody. I mean, anybody knows an All-Pro, it's Joe Thomas, who practically had a second home in Hawaii or Florida, wherever Joe played his Pro Bowls. So I like the pick. I really do. I think Cincinnati was no mystery what they were doing when they drafted Joe. I was so happy that the Lions took Jeff Okudah. I mean, I was in a Twitter debate with Lion fans, and it's pretty much probably 60-40 they wanted Okudah, but
who else did they want? Simmons?
Yeah, and Isaiah Simmons or Derek Brown. And in the arguments that I was making, Bruce, and I'm sure you understand this, when you get a corners are hard to find.
Yeah, they are.
You can find interior defensive linemen and get by with interior defensive linemen, but Derek Brown's going to be a great player. But interior defensive lineman, what's the difference between playing time and an interior defensive lineman and a corner? A corner's going to play 95% of the plays. An interior defensive lineman is going to play 60. If it's a high number, he'll play 65% of the plays, unless his name is Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Because it's a rotational position. So you get a full-time player. I didn't have a problem with the Lions taking either Simmons or Okudah. I wanted them to take Okudah because they were 32nd in pass defense. They play man-to-man more than anybody else. And Jeff is the best, clearly the best man-to-man cover corner coming out in this year's draft, plus of his length and his speed and what kind of kid he is off the field. I saw you even send a nice tweet about Jeff.
Jeff Okudah was, he was. Now look, there's a difference between being humble and not projecting confidence. Jeff Okudah walks that fine line where he's humble, but he's not a shrinking violet. We saw that at the combine where the ill-prepared reporter said, you were sloppy in what way? Like, if you were humble to an unnecessary degree, you would have just let that ride. He's not going to let that ride. He's like, no. Sloppy in what way? Well, check the tape. You'll see. No PIs, no holdings.
That was great.
So that's okay. It's okay to me to step up and defend your record. But I always found Jeff, I would guess maybe the best word, and I didn't think of it last night, is Jeff was always very accommodating.
Yeah.
You got a question? It's a good question. I'll entertain your question. And that's all I ever asked as a reporter was, if I ask you a fair question, just give me a fair answer. If I ask you a dumb question, go ahead and light me up. Tell me why it's a dumb question. Yeah. I may have a counter as to why I need you to say it, as opposed to in my words. I always found Jeff very accommodating. Chase Young very accommodating. Yeah. Damon Arnette has a real edge to him. But at that position, that's necessary.
I need it. I don't want somebody that's shy or timid at that position. I think Damon plays with a chip on his shoulder. I think Damon was probably as excited as anybody that he went in the first round because he had question marks, and he's playing second fiddle to Jeff Okudah, and I think Damon feeds off of that, though. And the Raiders took Damon Arnette, which was great for Damon Arnette. But I think with Jeff, I want that confidence because I can't have a mental weak person playing corner for me because you're going to get burned. It's just inevitable of how good these wide receivers are going to be. And by the way, when you look at that draft, LSU had a bunch of first rounders. I think Alabama had quite a few first rounders. It's just it's almost like Ohio State, LSU, and Alabama dominated that first round.
Clemson had Simmons, and they had the corner AJ Terrell. I don't know. Did Higgins go to first?
No,
probably not.
But here's the thing I was going to say. And I tweeted at this. Ryan Day just got another big, huge recruiting poster, right?
You kidding? He did.
I mean, 3 guys. Now I get it. I get LSU can claim. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow. And I got to be honest with you.
LSU, they had Burrow, they had Chason, they had Jefferson, they had a linebacker.
Queen.
Might have had more. They might have had more than that. I gave up on it after a while.
Was Ruggs or Henry Ruggs?
Well, he's Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is the highlight of the draft is when the draft starts. So Ohio State can rightfully claim, I'm being serious now, you can claim Joe Burrow. I mean, if I'm the head coach, let me ask you this. If you're the head coach, there can be 2 truths, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Can you claim Joe Burrow if you're recruiting quarterbacks? If you're claiming Chase Young, you're claiming Jeff Okudah.
Of course.
I mean, that's just a recruiting headliner, right? It's like you might as well put NFL training camp over the Woody Hayes athletic facility.
So if let me be an Ohio State coach in the room of a 5-star quarterback, and how could I use Joe Burrow to my advantage? Because the 5-star quarterback could say, "Look, man, like you had the Heisman Trophy winner and the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, and you let him get away."
Yeah.
How would I answer that? I would say, "Okay, well, that's true. We made a decision between Joe Burrow and Dwayne Haskins, also a first rounder. Joe was injured and Dwayne got an opportunity, and he took the opportunity, and he came off the bench at Michigan, led us to 3 scores, and beat our arch rival. There's nothing anyone could ever do in practice to prove that they're capable of doing that in a game over someone who's already done it in a game. The quarterback we put in threw for 50 touchdowns, was the Big Ten MVP, and was a Heisman Trophy finalist." Okay? So I get that Joe Burrow won the Heisman and led his team to the national championship. What it tells you is Joe's other offers were from Boston College and Vanderbilt and someone else. And so we have the ability to recognize great talent and great potential. That's why we're in your living room right now. I can't guarantee you won't have a freak accident in practice and break your hand as an Ohio State Buckeye and give someone else an opportunity. I also can't guarantee you that someone else might not break their hand and give you an opportunity. So we're giving you an opportunity because we see in you what we saw in Joe Burrow, what we saw in Dwayne Haskins, what we saw in Justin Fields. Development is our specialty. And if you want to come to a place that develops guys and gets them ready for the NFL draft, come to Ohio State. That's how I would use Joe Burrow.
Beautiful.
These came back from a search.
What are you doing?
I must have put my...
Joe Burrow?
No,
Is he from Ohio or Louisiana?
I put my... that's a good question. You got an iPhone. Why don't you ask Siri? Where did Joe Burrow play college football?
Please invest in an iPhone. Will you please invest in an iPhone?
No.
Well, I don't understand that.
Because I don't want to learn new technology.
It's easier than that thing you have.
I don't know what happened there.
You got to get rid of the flip phone. You said the exact same.
Not a flip phone.
We train guys for the NFL. Here's our track record.
Yeah.
And you explained why Dwayne beat Joe. Dwayne legitimately beat Joe out. I mean, now it might not be no fault of Joe's, but Dwayne beat him out. That's just the way it goes.
Listen.
And that wasn't an easy decision, but everybody was on board, even here in the state of Ohio, because I think people knew how good Joe was going to be or had an idea. And Joe didn't have he had a very good junior year at LSU, or 4th year at LSU.
That was the best answer last night ever when they asked somebody. Susie Culper said, "A year ago you were at the draft, and if I'd have told you then you'd be the number 1 pick next year, what would you have said?" And I thought Joe's cockiness might have been, he might have said, "Yeah, I wouldn't have been a bit surprised." That he didn't say that. He said, "Well, I would have said, blah, blah, I would have been shocked." And she said, "How do you explain junior year to senior year?" And he goes, "I wasn't very good as a junior." Man, did I love that answer.
I was going to say all that, but you said it for me when I was in mid-sentence again, by the way.
Takes a while to get our timing back now that we're in the same place.
I know I have to defer to the 2-time state champion.
I'm sorry.
But, all right, can I finish my thought now? Then,
yeah. Please. Then I have the great Joe Burrow stat.
Okay, well, just go ahead. Go ahead. Just give me your stat, because
I got to find it first.
All right, okay, then is it okay for me to chat now?
The floor is yours.
My point was that he was coming into this year, he was a 6th rounder. 6th, 5th, 4th, whatever. By his play in putting together the single greatest season of any college quarterback in the history of college football, he certainly elevated himself to be the number 1 pick overall. And his abilities and his talent was able to shine because he was also surrounded by a great team and an excellent coach. And and the offensive coordinator,
Joe Brady,
who is now, I believe, the offensive coordinator with the Carolina Panthers.
I think he might be quarterback coach.
Or something.
He's on the staff.
And so Joe took advantage of everything. And he was, I think, safe to say, a little bit of a late bloomer. Which isn't bad, because here is a guy that's a 5th-year guy that understands what it means to fight for everything you get. And that's the perfect guy that I want for my quarterback, because he's been buried before on a depth chart. He fought his way out. And the one quality, if I were Zach Taylor with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm sitting around and I'm talking with Duke Tobin and the whole staff, and what I'm going to say is this. Here's the thing about Joe Burrow. When he left Ohio State, he could have gone to any school like Bowling Green. He could have gone with his dad to Ohio U and Frank Solich. Could have gone to Miami of Ohio. Could have gone to Nebraska. He chose to go to LSU to compete, and he won. That says everything I need to know about Joe Burrow. Go ahead.
Okay, here's the stat.
Okay.
Joe Burrow's best season at Ohio State. This is his season total. 22 of 26, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's his redshirt freshman season.
Yeah.
That's his best. That's the other season he didn't have that many passes. He didn't have that many yards, that many touchdowns. Last season at LSU, Joe Burrow threw for more yards in every game than he threw for in an entire season at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Last season at LSU, in 14 of 15 games, he threw for more touchdowns than he threw for in his best season at Ohio State. So, wow, he had a great year. I don't think you could have seen that coming. And kudos to Joe Burrow. Yeah. Kudos to Joe Brady. Kudos to Ryan Day and Corey Dennis and everybody who's ever coached. Kudos to his high school coach.
Urban Meyer.
Kudos to Urban Meyer.
Here's the thing about Urban. I think that was the thing that Urban knew he had to let Joe go, but I think it killed him letting him go.
Yeah, it did.
Because you're losing a great player.
Kudos to Tom Herman, who discovered Joe, and Urban was not convinced.
Yeah,
and I've read that many times.
Here's the thing, though, too. I mean, if we're speaking statistically, Urban Meyer. I wonder how many coaches have put 2 quarterbacks that were number 1 overall in the NFL draft. There's a story idea for you.
That's a good story idea.
Alex Smith,
Alex
right?
Smith and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, yeah.
That he recruited. So talking about identifying talent, and Ryan Day, so far at least on paper, hasn't missed a beat.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. I think now with Damon Arnette went in the first round, Urban coached, according to my standard, 16 first-rounders at Ohio State. I don't give him credit for Ryan Shazier and Brad Roby because they were here for 1 year under his tutelage and went in the first round.
Mhm.
So I give Tress credit for those guys. But I will give Urban credit for Garrett Wilson, Harry Miller, guys that he recruited who came here because of him. And obviously you could count those guys, some of them as Ryan Day guys. I wouldn't necessarily, who gets credit, who now I would be using in recruiting if I were a head coach. If I'm Jeff Hafley, I'm using Jeff Okudah and I'm using Damon Arnette. Because Damon Arnette was not thought to be a first rounder, and Jeff Okudah split time in the backfield until he got with Jeff Hafley. So if I'm Jeff Hafley at Boston College, I'm using those two guys.
So
here's what I can do.
Working with the Lions last night, so I was on and listening to all the.
Mhm.
I was on the same broadcast on a website. Tori Petrie was interviewing Matt Patricia,
Mhm.
and I was just in hold and I was listening to Matt. You know the first name that Matt Patricia brought up?
Was it Hafley?
Jeff Hafley.
Oh, well, you had to love that because you got on me all about my Jeff Hafley love last year.
No, I'm not saying I don't like Jeff Hafley. I think he's really good. I told you that when I was in San Francisco.
Yeah.
When I was the voice of the 49ers 2
That's
years
right,
ago.
you were when they were bad.
Yeah, that seems to be. Hey, I'm the kingmaker. That's all I
Yes,
know.
you are.
Which will tell me that the Redskins or the Giants are going to kick rear end
Look
next
out,
year.
boy. You did some Tampa games too, though.
Yeah, I did toward the end. Yeah, that's right. If Tampa wins it, it's not Brady or Gronk.
No, it's you.
It's me.
Totally you.
So that should give people confidence, and that's what again Ohio State can sell. And don't you think? Let me ask you this: do you believe that high school kids look at this, break it down? I mean, the top ones, right? I mean, some of them are so not the draft, but who coached that guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the biggest selling point, man. It was a huge night for Ohio State last night and Ryan Day, and they don't even know it. And they didn't even say that.
Oh, they know it.
Okay.
Oh, they know it. Trust me. I'm sure their Twitter is celebrating it big time. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
As it should be, right?
Yeah. And here's a tweet. Shout out to 11 Warriors for this. Ohio State has had 6 defensive backs taken in the first round of the last 4 drafts. 6 DBs in the first round of the last 4 drafts. Michigan has had 6 first-round picks in the last decade. Not DBs, total picks in the last decade. You can't run from that.
I'm actually going to tweet that out because I've been engaging with my Michigan people.
Mm-hmm.
They're really going to love that one. What is that again?
Ohio State has had 6 defensive backs taken
That's
in the
under 11
first
Warriors.
round.
I'll retweet 11 Warriors. I love it.
First round of the last 4 years. Michigan has had 6 first-round picks in the last decade. So Ohio State's had Apple, Lattimore, Hooker. I think they might have had more. I don't know, maybe more than 6. Conley, and the 2 last night.
7.
I have 6. No. Lattimore, Hooker, Conley, Apple, Okudah, Arnette. Is that
You
it?
forgot Hooker.
No, I didn't. I said Hooker, Lattimore,
Gary on.
Conley, Apple, Arnette, Okudah. 6.
Okay.
So, DBU.
I mean, people.
They call themselves BIA, Best in America.
People,
I mean, Florida had a kid. Florida's up there, and LSU's up there. I mean, look, if you want a corner, go to LSU, Florida, or Ohio State. That's where you go. By the way,
11 Warriors.
11 Warriors.
I'm going to tweet that.
I can't wait. Twitter, at 11 days.
I can't wait for Michigan fans to jump.
Oh, they're going to love you. Now, are you going to give Jeff Okudah any insight into what it's like as an Ohio State Buckeye playing for the Detroit Lions? Because that was a little done. You got that question, and you were like, I don't care. They're paying me. I'm playing there.
No.
NFL. But, Okudah's in that same situation you are.
Here's,
And the Lions are like the Browns. They don't take very many Ohio State players.
Well, first of all, Lions fans as a whole are different than Michigan fans as a whole, or Michigan State fans.
Mm-hmm.
Lions fans are awesome. They are passionate. They have opinions. Lion fans are a reflection of Detroit, that type of just person. You know what I mean?
Blue collar?
Just blue collar,
mm-hmm.
rough, and loyal, but they will let you know. I've fought a lot of people here. It's funny, they say, who cares who they draft? I haven't watched this team in 34 years. Who cares? But they know everything about
Sure
it,
they
right?
do, yeah. They're like Browns fans. They're tormented.
I said, obviously, you care that they who they draft, and so I was trying to be a voice of optimism. But I think Jeff is going to love it because it's like anything, Bruce. If I would have went to Detroit and fell on my face and played awful, it would have been, what do you expect when you draft an Ohio State guy?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so if you produce, you're a hero. If you don't produce, you're a goat. That's the beauty of professional football. There's not a gray area. You're either really, really good and they like you, or you're really, really bad and they hate you.
Mm-hmm.
There's nowhere to hide, which I love.
Let's talk about Damon Arnette to the Oakland Raiders. But first, while we're talking about the Lions, share with people your major announcement, and then we'll do our drawing for $250 each in COVID-19 relief. We want to remind you that Hemisphere Coffee Roasters has contributed to our COVID-19 relief. Hemisphere Coffee Roasters, the best coffee and a great mission. Buying direct from growers in Nicaragua, Ethiopia, and Thailand. Buying around the world to give you the best coffee and to give those growers more money than they would get if they had to go through different layers of negotiations, which would strip off many of the profits. What do the growers in those countries do with the money that they get? Well, they do great things. In Nicaragua, they planted 51 churches. In Thailand, they've saved 70 women from human trafficking by giving them jobs in the coffee industry. We love partnering with Hemisphere Coffee Roasters, and we invite you to use the promo code We Tackle Life in all caps when you order from HemisphereCoffeeRoasters.com to get 15% off. You can pay full price and note in the comment section that you heard about Hemisphere from Spielman and Hooley, and they will donate 20% of sales to our COVID-19 relief. So Mr. Spielman had his K-Cup this morning.
Yeah, I did.
And
really good.
Nice to have Hemisphere be a partner in what we're doing. We appreciate them very much. So, you want to start with your major announcement?
Yeah.
Or you want to start with your drawing? Okay.
So you and I were moved. I do believe for most of our adult lives, I like to think I have been, and I think you've been. When we see action, we usually take action within our means. What can we do? Let's not sit around and complain and point out the problem. Let's sit around and try to solve the problem or alleviate the pain that the problem may be causing. So we put our heads together and we decided when this quarantine started, and by the way, there's good news coming out like I thought there would be after Easter, whether it be the antibody testing out of San Francisco, out of LA, or out of New York. It came out yesterday that more people have had this, which is a better sign because the more people that have had it, and once they identify that more people have had it, the mortality rate plummets, which we all want. A scientist yesterday during President Trump's news conference talked about how the virus is not very strong against UV lighting, humidity, all that is what we want. And so I think we're going to keep getting little bits of information, and with the more knowledge we get on how to fight this, the better news is going to come out, and the quicker we'll be back to normal. And the fact that I'm sitting here today with you, as opposed to talking on the phone, is cool. But we decided to give away 250. We started out with $100, and we both said, well, that's not enough. I mean, it's nice and could do something for somebody, but it's not enough. So we decided to try to give away $250 to 4 people every single week. That's what the number that we came down for 40 weeks. It's on our webpage. I don't know if you put it up or not, about why we chose the number 40. Basically, it's biblical.
Yeah.
We're both biblical guys, and so the number 40 was chosen. Now, the only problem is, well, how are we going to raise $40,000? And I've been more than blessed, but I don't just have $40,000 to throw into a pot. I
grab that out of your wallet and toss it in.
I have bills and minions and a spawn that continue to leech off of me, even more so during this quarantine. But I love them.
No, wife who's told you you're not going to go with the least expensive decorating option in the new house. Right? Didn't you disclose that fact on the podcast the other day?
Yeah, I'm going to retell that story. But so we're going to go to 40 weeks. And so we have to do $1,000 a week. So we put up the memorabilia.
You put up the memorabilia.
Well,
I don't have memorabilia.
Okay, but this is a team effort.
Okay.
So when I say we, just say oh, thank you, or of course it's sweet.
You're right.
And so, yeah, you don't always have to just once in a while.
I don't want to claim credit for something
You're
I
not
shouldn't claim credit
I'm
for.
giving you credit.
Okay.
You're not claiming credit.
Okay, all right.
Man, just take a compliment, will you?
I'm a little uncomfortable with claiming credit for your generosity.
You're
I am very uncomfortable with that.
okay. I put up the memorabilia.
Mhm.
I had to raise $40,000 because I said I would do that.
Mhm.
So I was hired for a good check, nothing crazy, but enough with the sale of the second Big Ten ring this past week,
Mhm.
plus what I'm going to make for working with all the different various Lions platforms for the draft. We have reached our goal of $40,000. It's amazing that I was able to help raise that money.
Mhm.
Now,
And the people help raise it by
Yeah.
bidding great amounts
exactly.
of money for the memorabilia.
And the two rings that sold, both guys, I'm actually meeting the second ring buyer this afternoon to get in the ring. Both guys have promised me that it's in their trust that when they die, they are going to get the rings back to my family. That was a stipulation that they made, not me.
Yeah.
That they made. So that's so cool.
Nice, very nice.
And I told you about the guilt that the second ring buyer